Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thanks to all of the witnesses here today. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I see my internet connection may not be great. I represent one of the most diverse districts in the country with immigrants from all over the world that help drive our economy in Gwinnett and Forsyth counties. About a quarter of my constituents were born outside of the United States. Many of these, of course, as you all have noted, are entrepreneurs and operate lots of wonderful mom and pop shops, all over this district. And so our challenge is to figure out how to, of course, get them through the COVID crisis and then get them off to a strong start on the other side of this. So just starting at the top with a question for Mr. Kalick, you mentioned in your testimony concerns about the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on immigrant communities, the importance of correcting that imbalance using small business relationships with big banks versus CDFIs as an example. In your view, how can Congress ensure that our immigrant-owned businesses, which are these really, wonderful but often small and don't have those regular banking relationships, how do we help them recover and build back better after the pandemic?
I wish I had a more fully blown answer for you. I think there are 1,000 steps along the way, and as you consider each one, I would say, it would be really important to think about how is that going to affect the immigrant businesses, the businesses owned by people of color who have been so sometimes deliberately, I think, sometimes not deliberately, but so excluded from other forms of aid. So I'm not sure how to, I'd be glad to come back another day and come with a series of proposals. I don't really have one ready, but I think it can be part of the thinking at every step of the way.
Okay, certainly. I've heard about the micro lending programs, things like that. And then we're working with our Small Business Development Center also to try to really improve and build on the outreach to our immigrant businesses. Recently, I held an event with over 60 restaurants from Georgia 7. This was last week with Isabel Guzman, the Small Business Administrator. And many of those who showed up to this event were immigrant-owned restaurants, and they were getting to apply for and receive assistance through the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. However, we know that there are many other businesses that have not been able to access any assistance over the past year. And so we are now looking forward to the launch of the Community Navigator pilot program on April 30th. And it's my hope that this program will enable more immigrant-owned businesses to get the information and resources that they need to help them recover and prosper in the years to come. That being said, we're trying to figure out, what does this community navigator need to do? How are we going to target that towards our small businesses in order to help them be successful? And one of my colleagues at Georgia State University did a study and talked about how a lot of resources were really just oriented towards providing in-language services to folks. And I was wondering, it's a question for Mrs. Jaja Chen, what would be some of the things that would really help people in the sort of the Taiwanese or Chinese business community? What could the Small Business Administration do to help them get to the other side of this crisis? We wanted them to provide services in language, to have some of that kind of outreach, but are there other things they could be doing that would help a business like yours or, your colleagues and peers in the community?
Well, I think it's huge to really focus in on building relationships with the grassroots organizations and community organizations like mutual aid groups that are already serving immigrant-owned populations. And so rather than revamping, creating brand new programs, really starting to recognize like there's so many nonprofits and organizations already serving the immigrant-owned population or immigrant-owned business population. So it's important to really have the linkages, right? The collaboration between the organizations. And part of that is having the time, having people to be able to build those linkages, to build those relationships, and to be able to ensure that there is that cultural competency that's held up throughout that time in the relationship, because it comes down to someone having the relationship with someone to know, oh, I can actually qualify for programs within the SBA. I think many Chinese and Taiwanese business owners might not even realize that they have the ability to apply for programs like the PVP or Restaurant Revitalization Fund.
I would just say we have this challenge, and I'll have to wrap up, but we have people with the cultural knowledge and people with the small business knowledge. We've got to find a way to bring those two groups together. But thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. I yield back the balance of my time.